Hello there, World of Tankers. Welcome to the channel. I'm your host, Droodles Blitz, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the future of World of Tanks Blitz and why I actually find it to be an incredibly positive and optimistic outlook. And by the time you're done watching today's video, I think you will also agree with what I have to say. Blitz Reforged, the trailer and the Ultra Test was released about a month ago. And it has brought in some absolutely crazy ideas, opinions, and criticism. I think we can all agree that the first iteration of Ultra Test sucked. There were a lot of problems with the UI, the game itself crashed a lot, and the FPS struggled. It just, in general, was not very good. But here's the thing that a lot of the player base is forgetting, and that is the fact that Blitz Reforged and the Ultra Test was literally an ultra test. I made a poll on my channel when it was released, and I think it was 14,000 people voted on the poll, and the question was, will you quit the game if Blitz Reforged is released? 75% of the people that voted in that poll said they would quit the game. That is an insane amount of people when you actually think about it. Not only that, I have read multiple comments of people saying they've already quit the game. They're playing Tank Company. They're playing Lesta Blitz. They're playing some other version, Gaijin's War Thunder, right? I've seen so many comments of people saying they're quitting the game. They've already quit the game. They're done with Blitz. And to me, that's kind of stupid and absolutely crazy. As I mentioned, we are in the first Ultra Test. Wargaming has announced that they are going to have more Ultra Tests in the future. Many more Ultra Tests in the future. Ultra Test 2, Ultra Test 3, Ultra Test 4. I don't know exactly how many we are going to have. But the point is, there are going to be multiple tests. And I find it a little absurd that people are saying that they're going to quit the game and that they're done with Blitz because of their reaction to something that is considered an Ultra Test. Listen, guys, I get it. Being critical, sharing your opinions, and saying what you agree and what you disagree with on this game, that is all something that I am down for. I made a 50-minute video where I talked about every single thing that I disagree with when it comes to Blitz Reforged. I have put in more time, more battles, and more gameplay than probably any other person in Blitz when it comes to Reforged. I created a new account. I messed around with the tutorial. I have messed around with just about everything. I know just about everything about the current Reforged. And there's a lot of complaints to be had, which I will continue to voice in the future and talk about in the future. But the point being, there are people acting like what Wargaming has shown us in the first Ultra Test is written in stone. And it's not. They've already shown that they are willing to compromise, they are willing to change what they had the original idea of, and they've admitted they're at fault. This is something that's been very rare in the past, which is Wargaming saying, hey, we screwed up and we're gonna fix it. But after my conversation with the devs, and after the response that Wargaming has given, I completely am on board with the idea that Wargaming is going to be making the game better, and that Reforged will actually be a rather good success. What were the complaints the community had before Wargaming did their announcement on Tuesday? Well, the complaints were they hate the way commanders look, right? You guys all said you hated the way commanders look. Wargaming announced that they're going to be making commanders look better. After that, the major complaint was that sets and the overall UI sucks. Guess what? Wargaming announced they're going to be making sets and the overall UI look more like tech trees, and they're going to be fixing the way that they are organized. After that, the major complaint was that there's no nations and that the filtering in general is bad. Wargaming has announced they're going to be making the current Reforged look and play almost exactly like the current Blitz in the garage. So when you're scrolling in the garage and the overall tank selection, the filter tab, all of that, they've said they're going to be closely mirroring as much as possible to the Blitz experience that we have. Obviously, optimization and the game running better is going to be something that will happen over time. All of the complaints when it comes to the UI and the overall gameplay experience that we have been complaining about, Wargaming has already said within 2 weeks of our criticism, they are going to be completely redesigning and fixing. And to me, that is actually huge news and something that I did not expect, and I don't think a lot of the community expected, and we should actually be very, very happy and optimistic about this. I think Wargaming is wanting to listen to the player base. The reason why it was an ultra test and not a release You know, if Wargaming did what they've done in the past, where, like, for example, skill-based matchmaking, they just released it into the game and said, there you go. But no, Wargaming actually wanted our opinions here. They actually wanted to mess around with the future of the game, and that's what they've done. And this is great. And I have even a further development on this because I was given the opportunity to speak to the developers, right? This is something to me that has kind of been a dream. I have always wanted to be able to speak to the devs and the lead dev of the game, talk about things that I disagree with, talk about the future implementation of what's happening in the game. And I expressed my willingness to try and bridge the gap between Wargaming and the players. Because let's be honest, a lot of you guys, including me, are skeptical sometimes about Wargaming's future plans for the game, monetization, and other problems. And I would love to be the player and the content creator that is able to bridge that gap and kind of give more information and work closer with Wargaming on balance changes and make you guys feel like your voices are actually being heard. The other day, I talked about Helldivers and how Arrowhead is currently, you know, Giga Chad, listening to the community and doing everything that they need to be, and they've been doing a fantastic job. And I love Helldivers for that. It's my favorite game right now. But what I didn't mention in that video, and I was saving for this video, is the fact that Arrowhead had ignored the player base, ignored all of the core complaints about the game, and did what they wanted to do, which was continuously nerf and nerf and nerf items, to a point where Helldivers went from being so popular to super unpopular. And then after Arrowhead started listening to the player base, listening to what they wanted changed and doing this and doing that, the popularity now has gone all the way back up, and they even won the Steam Awards. And it's such a good example of how a company that went from ignoring their player base now went to being like the most respected company ever. Helldivers had a event where they collabed with another company, which was Killzone, and they released a war bond, which is kind of like a battle pass. But this battle pass was available to be earned completely for free if you just ground for super credits, which is what they're called. Basically, think of super credits as gold. But the difference is that you could earn super credits by just playing the game and opening, I like to call them supply pods. But in other words, you could easily earn like 200 to 300 super credits an hour just by playing the game in lower level difficulties. Not very challenging at all. Any player can do it. And Helldivers released a store page, which it costs like 2,000 super credits in total. So like $20 US to buy all the new items in collab. Players complained that it was too expensive. Arrowhead, which is the creators of Helldivers, said, you know what, fine, you guys are right. They gave every single player the entire store page for free. Now that is insane. And it shows how the company went from being just ignoring everything, nerfing and nerfing and nerfing, to doing a complete 180 and now listening to the player base. And to me, it seems like this is kind of the redemption arc that we're having here with Wargaming, right? Wargaming has actually been doing just a great job so far. I have to say, they have done a very good job of listening to our complaints. They have said they're going to fix a lot of the problems, and I'm really hoping and feeling that Wargaming is going to continue working closer with us. And I can actually confirm this with multiple reasons. As I said, I talked to the devs, and the original conversation with the devs was only supposed to last about 30 minutes. But the problem was the lead dev talked to me and basically talked for about 20 minutes. And then he said, okay, now you have questions. And I was like, man, I only have 10 minutes of questions. But in reality, I was actually able to ask about an hour of questions, which was great. And I really do appreciate Thane for his time. It's great that I was able and given the opportunity to speak to Wargaming directly, voice the concerns that you guys have, talk about them, and hope to see them implemented in the future. One of the big questions that I had was, when is Blitz Reforged going to be released? And the response that I was given was, we don't know. Originally, Blitz Reforged was supposed to be released in like 4 months from the current time of this video being recorded. And the reason why was because it was going to be in between seasons. So when the Destiny went out of season, we were going to see, you know, Blitz Reforged in between that and when the next season would be released. However, that was obviously changed. Wargaming basically told me that they do not have a determined release date, and they are only going to release Blitz Reforged once we as the community and the devs are happy with the product that is being presented to us. This is honestly amazing news. And if you don't understand why, it's because Wargaming has explicitly said that they are not going to be releasing Reforged until we as the players are happy with the product. I mean, that's as simple as it is. I've basically confirmed that it's almost not going to be released in 2025 at this point. I don't know when the exact date's going to be. Nobody does. But what I can say is that it's not being rushed. And to me, that is such a weight lifted off my shoulder. I was originally very worried that Wargaming had a set deadline and they were going to release Reforged on that deadline. But because they very clearly stated to me that they do not have a deadline, it means that our complaints will be tackled. And it means that they're actually listening to us. They're doing what we want them to. And this is great. It's honestly amazing. So I got no complaints there at all. I'm actually really, really happy to hear that. The other thing that I was really, really happy to hear about, and I was able to take home about the conversation I had with Wargaming, was the topic on the future communications between Wargaming and the player base. I made it very clear that there were a lot of problems with communication, and it's one of the major reasons why we had so much backlash, because in the problem, Wargaming hasn't always been the most communicative when it comes to these issues. And I very clearly expressed my desire to work closer with Wargaming to kind of bridge the gap between the player base and the company so that I can, be the mediator. But not only that, I was also told by Wargaming themselves that they are going to be working closer with the community, that they do express a similar desire to bridge the gap between the player base. And this is something that's huge for me. I think that this really is a turning point for the company, and it's going to be a great turning point. I think that this could be an actually amazing future for the game. If Wargaming takes into account the problems that we have, they take into the account balancing and decisions that previously may have been left undiscovered, it's going to be a huge, huge benefit for the game. And I want you guys to let me know your personal feelings, comments, and opinions down below. As I said, I talked to the devs for about an hour and a half, and most of what I talked about when it came to the devs were A, working closer with Wargaming so that things like this don't happen in the future, and B, changes that I would like to see implemented. Obviously, when it came to stats, Wargaming has said that stats and all of that's going to be making a continuation in the next version of Blitz. So that's great. The commanders, the UI, all of that are going to be mostly fixed. I think I had in total 7 bullet points that I originally listed for Wargaming. We can actually see the bullet points here. I had 7 in total. And you can see all the bullet points, right? I had sets. All of the sets here talking about the poor choice of tanks to be organized into sets, talking about, all of this. Most of the problems with sets here have been solved, so I can remove that. Topic 2, balance. This I talked about with Wargaming. They've said that they're going to be working on that in the future, and hopefully I'll be able to talk about this more in the future. Fixed. Currency. This one definitely needs to be touched upon more. Commanders, it definitely needs to be touched upon a little more. Backlash, I talked about this very in depth. That will be hopefully fixed. And direction, this is exactly where we currently are. I said the overall direction of the game heading for a younger audience, seeming to push out older players. I talked about that. I said the fact you still need to keep your current older player base. And I said I'm always going to voice my honest feelings and critiques, but I would like to be more informed and closer to Wargaming. And that is exactly what I talked about. I spoke about the fact that, I'm the largest content creator, and I would love to be able to close the gap. And hopefully that's where the future of the game will head, is that Wargaming is going to talk more to content creators. They are going to be more involving when it comes to the game. And that's great. I got no complaints there. So I am willing to say that I think the future of Blitz Reforged is actually quite optimistic. And I think people that are saying, oh, I'm going to quit the game. Oh, I've already quit the game. I'm going over to Gaijin. It's just an incredible, incredible increase of escalation for no reason. Give the game a chance. Wait for Wargaming to actually make decisions. And once we have these decisions implemented and we see what the final vision for Reforged is a year and a half down the line, maybe 2 years, I don't know when it's going to be released. But wait until we actually see the final vision. You don't look at a first draft on, pretend I'm wanting a new logo made for my YouTube banner, right? And I pay somebody, or I don't pay them, but I say, hey, I want a new logo. This is my idea. Make it for me. And then they make me an idea, and I say, wow, that sucks. Redesign it. And then they redesign it, and it gets closer to what I want. And I'm like, okay, we'll fix this here, fix that there. And then they redesign it again. The more and more they redesign it, the closer we get to harmony. And that's exactly how I see Blitz. So Wargaming, my message to you is that you need to work closer with the community on this. You need to be more open. You've done a great job so far. And if you continue to do what you've been doing, Blitz Reforged will be fantastic. And when it comes to the player base, maybe instead of overreacting and saying, hey, we're going to quit the game, we give it some time, we wait for future developments, and we see what's going to happen before we just up and quit. Those are the two things I will say. So I'm very optimistic. I'm excited for the future of this game. And I'm going to be honest, this is the most excited I've been in a while, especially after my conversations with Wargaming and the dev. I would love to be able to talk more to the developer in the future. I would love to be able to do a live stream with the dev and the whole dev team and ask them questions that you guys have and tell them comments and concerns that the player base has, and they can explain what their idea is in the future about that and everything else. But we'll have to see what happens, right? Either way, hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you'd like to see more like it, please consider smashing that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye!